Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Malachi's Message, Toxic Mold Sucks podcast and video podcast. I'm Elizabeth Kripe, Executive Director and co-founder of Malachi's Message. Co-hosting today is Emily Rochelle. She is our co-founder and currently serves as our board chair of Malachi's Message. You probably recognize this lovely face that is here with us today. Cristina Greenfield has been a guest numerous times on our podcast, and we are so excited to have her back. We're going to talk building contracts and what to look for in building practices. Cristina also hosts an Instagram page called Rebuilding Revival, and it is incredible the resources she has. She's very upfront about what she finds, and this has turned into an amazing hobby. I'm grateful she exists. My husband and I were looking at a home the other day, and we started talking about, well, what did Cristina put up about that? What did she say about this? So, Cristina, thank you for coming again and joining us and having a conversation.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here. And I love that. I love that anything that I've ever said resonated with you and you used it in the field. That's awesome.
Yeah, we did. The people thought we were a little bit nuts. We're like, no, we got to go check something on Instagram. Hang on. Don't worry about us.
Yeah, don't mind us. Totally normal.
Well,
that's great.
Before we jumped on the recorded, we had a conversation and it was incredible. We were talking a little bit about contracts, and I don't know that I've seen Emily get that excited about something in a while. So we're just going to jump in with that topic first.
Sounds great.
Yeah. So Cristina, I cannot wait until all you do is help people with contracts with home builders, because I think that's such an important start for people is they need to really understand that contract and know things that they can change about it in order to help put more protection on them and not have all the protection on the home builder. So I'm going to just give it to you and go.
We'll dive right in. Yes. So I think with everything, my approach is, my approach is that sometimes what we don't know about can make you really scared. It can make you really fearful. And whenever you're making a decision out of fear, a lot of times, it's not the best decision. You're not using the right part of your brain to make a good, rational decision. And so that's kind of where my building science hobby, came from. And that's where it originated, is because whenever we went through mold and then we had to find a new place to live, and then we were thinking about building a home and we were taking those steps, I was like, well, what can we do? There's so much I don't know, and there's so many things that can go wrong, and you just hear all these horror stories. And I was really moving from a place of fear. But then I realized the more that I knew, the more that I started to learn, I realized, this is actually really empowering. The information is out there. It's not scary. Not everybody is bad. Not everybody is out to get you or screw you over or do the wrong things. There really are good builders, there are good companies out there trying to do the right thing. But for your own peace of mind, you need to have a baseline understanding of the standards that they should be held to, how you should be communicating, which is always in writing. Everything in writing. No one did know that. And just to understand kind of some case law and some precedent and, what laws and regulations apply and things like that. So my background is I am a lawyer, and we've already talked about this. I always joke that I'm the podiatrist of lawyers. I know almost nothing that is helpful for individuals like us, in particular people going through, this mold thing. But the areas that I'm a subject matter expert at, those are related to big companies, and that's my normal day job. But the things that I leverage in this hobby is understanding how to find case law, how to read case law, how to read contracts, how to write contracts, and all of those things are important for people who are looking to build a home. So one of the biggest resources that I want to share, and I want to explain a little bit, is this book, A Healthy House. You can't see it because my background is blurred, but it's A Healthy House. This book is great. And some people are turned off by it because some of the things that it goes into are building with completely organic materials. And some people are like, I don't want my house to be built of straw. There are stories about that, with pigs and straws, and we've heard that's not good. Nothing against people who are building their house like that, but for a lot of people, that's just not practical. And so what I will say is don't stop at that chapter, keep going, because in this book, they actually write out language that you can put in your own construction documents. And I guess I should back up a little bit, because everybody is probably aware that whenever you start working with a builder, you're going to work with a residential construction contract. Now, a lot of times, and what people might not know, or maybe they do know, is that there's really not a lot you can negotiate in that contract. It's usually a form contract. There's like a standard form that I think it was Perry. Pretty sure it was Perry, Bob Perry of Perry Homes. I think that he was instrumental in, or his company was instrumental in like drafting the form contract that's normally accepted in Texas. And so, a lot of the terms in that contract are going to be, you might not understand as a layperson. And so I think my first piece of advice is don't hesitate to get an attorney, even at that level. You shouldn't wait to get an attorney until things go bad. You should have an attorney to make sure that you are actually transacting in an arm's length transaction with the builder. And the facts of the matter are the builder knows what's in that contract. He knows how to leverage that contract to work in his favor. You don't. You're just a regular person wanting to build a house. You're signing papers, it feels like you're signing your life away anytime you're signing, financing and all of this stuff. You're just signing. You have to know what you're signing, and not because you're going to negotiate it, but because you need to understand how it's going to be used, potentially against you if you need to ever exercise your rights under that contract. And probably the biggest thing to look at is the dispute resolution section. So you'll just, the contracts usually have a bunch of different headings, right? They're like boldface type. So just look through the boldface type headings and look for dispute resolution and figure out what it says. Normally, if the builders are using the Texas standard residential contract form, it's going to be arbitration. They're going to push you into arbitration. So you're not going to be able to sue them normally if it's just a cause of action under the contract. You're not going to be able to go to court. You're not going to be able to talk to a judge or a jury. You're going to be talking to an arbitrator. And an arbitrator is just a regular person. Sometimes, most of the time, they're attorney. They don't have to be, but they're just a person who's sitting there in a room listening to both sides' arguments. And typically, it's not just arbitration, it's binding arbitration is what's listed in the construction contract. And that means that whatever the arbitrator says is it. You don't get to appeal. You don't get to try again. That's it, So if you have not gotten an attorney from the beginning and you don't have an attorney through arbitration, you think this is something that you can handle by yourself, keep in mind the builder does have those resources. They are going to have experts and legal counsel who are going to come in and they're going to understand how to make an argument using the contract to their favor, using the statutes in their favor. And you're going to come in and you're going to say something like, they didn't do what they were supposed to do. They lied. They messed up. There's mold in the house, and I told them. And you're going to have all these rational and maybe emotional arguments. And that's not going to win an arbitration. That's not going to win the case. You're not ticking any of the boxes that the arbitrator is looking for. And, the chances of the arbitrator ruling in the builder's favor are very high just because they're more well-positioned. And not only that, it's not free. So arbitration, you're going to have to pay for the arbitrator. You're going to have to pay for their time. You're going to have to pay, if you have an attorney, if you do get an attorney, you're going to be paying for that attorney unless that attorney has some arrangement where they're not going to charge you unless they win or whatever. But you're expending money at that point to try to exercise your rights of dispute resolution under the contract. So all of that sounds very stressful, right? How do you control that? And the best way to control, and although I'm a lawyer, another thing that I'm not is a litigator, so understand that. But I do handle a fair amount of like pre-litigation claims and disputes and things. And I will tell you, from a lawyer's perspective, your very best defense is a good offense. You want to not have to go down the road of trying to arbitrate, trying to litigate, trying to prove, trying to get attorneys. You don't want to go down that road. So your very best defense is to find a good builder and one that you trust. And not just that you trust and you're going to have like shake their hand and, this is Texas and we're all good old boys and we're friends and we don't need, contracts. You do need contracts. And you do want to work with a builder who also respects that you trust them, but that you want to verify. So you really have to, that's probably a whole separate conversation of how to find the right builder, what questions to ask and all that kind of stuff. But don't get into an agreement. Don't get into a relationship with a builder who you don't trust. And you can Google stuff. Like even these big builders, and that this will kind of bring us to what, we're going to talk about next is a case that I pulled. But these big builders Perry Homes, is a great example. There's a million other builders whose name that you'll recognize. They know what they're doing. They know how this process works. They know how their contracts work. They know how their warranties work. And what you need to know is how the courts work, how the courts actually interpret these things, because that's going to help you figure out how you handle your relationship with the builder. And I will say that a lot of people think, I think people get a bad rap for wanting to have attorneys. They're like, oh, that must mean that I don't trust you, or that must mean that this is already a contentious relationship. And I will tell you that if the other side feels that if you arm yourself with legal counsel, whether or not you're a lawyer, if the other side feels that that is a contentious move on. You don't want to work with that person, because any respectable person wants you to understand just as well as they understand all of the ins and outs of the contract, all of the ins and outs of your recourse. So let your freak flag fly. Like, get your legal counsel in place. Have your team behind you, because this is a big purchase, and it's not just a purchase; it's an investment in your family's health and well-being, safety. You can't put a price on that. So position yourself. Now, I want to tell you about this case. This case, I pulled it. I just pulled it on Google. So this is not any special legal, thing that I have. Just Google, Perry Homes mold, and you'll find this. So this was in the 14th Court of Appeals. This is a 2020 case. Miriam Latouche versus Perry Homes. And in this case, this person moved into a Perry home and almost immediately started getting sick. It was a brand new home, and she started feeling ill. So she started filing complaints. And this goes on for, let's see, from 2007, I think, all the way through 2018. Or 2017, 2018. And so various people in her home were getting sick, and she's filing complaints. And so imagine she's probably looking at her warranty, her builder's warranty, and it says, if you have a problem, submit a ticket, file a claim, here's the process, and we'll follow it. So she submits, I don't know, 5 or 6, maybe between 4 and 6 different complaints over the years, saying things like, I really think the house is making us sick. We weren't sick before we moved into this house, and now we're sick. And we pulled up the carpet, and there's a bunch of stuff under the carpet, and I really think that that's making us sick. We feel better when we're outside the home. She's putting all this in her complaint. And so finally, time passes. They finally find a doctor who is able to diagnose, and she's diagnosed with CIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome. And as we all know, this is an inflammatory condition that's oftentimes happens as a result of living in a water damaged building. So she goes and she finally sues Perry. So Perry Homes and her causes of action are DTPA, which is the Deceptive Trade Practices Act, which is supposed to protect consumers from big businesses who are being deceptive in their trade practices, who are lying or not, they're not accurately presenting what they're selling, what they're offering. It's a big call out on whether or not this is an arm's length transaction between individuals and large companies. So she sued under DTPA and under negligence, and unfortunately, she lost. She never even got to really try the case. She lost on a motion for summary judgment, which is one of the pre. I don't know if this is the right term. Again, I'm not a litigator, but the pre-litigation pleadings is a motion for summary judgment, which basically says, as a technicality, judge, these people don't qualify to move this case further, and so you should just dismiss it because they're not checking the right boxes. And the court affirmed. They dismissed her case. So she has CIRS. She has a doctor who says that she's sick and that she's been sick, and all of these symptoms are related to her living in the home. But on a technicality, she lost, and she's getting nothing from Perry Homes. So imagine what's happening in the background. Again, she's filing her warranty claims. She's reaching out to Perry. She's trying to do what she's been instructed to do under the construction documents or the warranty. This is how you file a claim. They're probably sending people out, and those people are probably saying, there's nothing wrong. I don't see anything wrong. This is probably a result of your bad maintenance, or that's normal. And I will tell you that, right now we're in a rental home that's a Perry home. And we noticed that there was a fresh air intake in our AC unit that was constantly on. It was hardwired in, so it was constantly pulling humid air into the unit. And then we noticed that there was moisture in the insulation of the plenum. So we saw that, and we called Perry and told them, and there's a problem. So can you send your person? So they sent some guy out who tries to gaslight me, tries to tell me, because I said there's moisture in the plenum, and he like pulls a small piece of the insulation out, and he's like waving it in my face, and he's like, is this wet? Is this wet? And I said, no, it's not wet. And I didn't say that the whole thing was wet. I said that there was too much moisture and that it was blowing off, and that is going to create a condition that is conducive to mold. And so then he tried to start telling me, and he said, well, you have to understand what words you're using, and you have to understand what words matter. And normally I don't ever tell people that I'm a lawyer. Like, normally that's not relevant, to the conversation. But in this case, I was like, words are my job. I understand that words matter. And do you understand what you're telling me? You're telling me that in your opinion, and in Perry's opinion, because you're speaking on behalf of the company, that this is acceptable. This is normal. This is within code. This is how this system is supposed to operate, that it's supposed to get wet on a material that mold is going to feed off of. That's what you're telling me. Had I not had I not started to understand how systems worked, I wouldn't have been able to push back. I would have just been like, oh, okay, I guess that's fine. I guess it's normal. And that's what so many people do. So that's what they do. They send somebody in to diminish, to just bide their time. So because what happened in this case is that Perry said, hey, plaintiff, whenever you first started complaining, whenever you first moved into that house, and the very first time that you submitted a ticket, that's when you knew. And the statute of limitations for deceptive trade practices and negligence is 2 years from the time that you knew or should have known. So the court said, you knew you were sick. You believed it was part of the house, that the house was making you sick. You said that. So you should have known. You should have gone out and done more diligence, and you should have figured out that it actually was mold that was making you sick. And you should have not stopped at just submitting tickets on per the warranty, like you were told to do. You should have escalated, and you should have sued at that time. And since you didn't, now you have no recourse. So it's completely unfair, because again, builders know how this works. They know the statute of limitations. They know that once you start submitting a ticket, you're on the record. You're on the record of saying, I know that there is an issue. And so I guess what I would submit for consideration for people when you're going, well, what am I supposed to do? I wouldn't mess around. I wouldn't mess around with the builder's warranty. I wouldn't mess around with their process. I believe that your home is your investment, and whether or not, you can go like this and say, well, they're supposed to, and I paid for a warranty, and they're supposed to fix it. And it doesn't matter. Your health is on the line. Your safety is on the line. Your investment is on the line. I say, go out, get your own person, get your own inspector, which I'll tell you why that could be a problem in a second as well. But go out and do that. Protect yourself, protect your investment, get it done, and then go try to collect from the builder, because you had to do this because you couldn't trust that they were going to do it right. I personally have absolutely no idea if that would be a successful argument, but that's the argument that I would make. Because all they're doing whenever they're coming in, they're sending their people and they're telling you it's not an issue, is they're just running you through the statute of limitations, so that at the end of the day, you have no recourse when you're finally, ready to try to escalate.
A little background about me is I used to be the on-site salesperson for home builders. And I'll tell you right now, looking back in the training that they had their salespeople go through, they trained them to basically make the person, I'll tell you exactly how it went. Hi, Cristina, I'm so glad we found the perfect lot. We found your perfect floor plan. It's going to be an amazing home for your family. Here's our builder's contract. It's the standard builder's contract. Every home builder uses it. It basically protects the home builder. But the good thing about this is you have warranties. You have a 1 year on your workmanship. You have a 2 year, basically everything inside the wall, 10 year on structural, and 25 years on your shingles. And it's that way. If you do have an issue, you do have coverage. Not like if you're going to go buy a resale home, right? So that's wonderful. wonderful news. Let's go
Yeah.
ahead and sign it, because today, if you sign it today, it's at the end of the month, you're going to get $2,000 off, or $2,000 towards your closing costs. So let's go ahead and get that, concretely secured with your signature on this paperwork.
Yeah.
Because these people are emotional at that moment too. They're happy and they're not thinking, hey, I really need to read through this contract.
Yeah.
And understand exactly what this means for me and my family.
Yep.
And they, like you guys said, they don't know how to read through it.
No,
Right.
yeah.
Like most of
Most
us in
people
our
don't.
original mold state, all of us look back and go, oh shit, like I wish I would have seen this addendum or what they added here to the contract. And
Yep.
now you're telling me to go buy a home and I missed it on the first one. Well, what am I going to miss on this one? And I love that you said it's the offense, because it is. Like,
Yeah.
you're not trying to piss somebody off. You're trying to make sure you walk into it, like you said, so you don't have these problems again and again and again.
Yeah. And a true partner wants that for you.
Yeah.
And they honestly, and I hate to even say this, but my partner and I, my sales partner and I were like one of the best teams.
Mhm.
And we would literally text each other, okay, it looks like they're ready to really write this contract. I need your help. Call in. I'll be in the office in about 5 minutes. Call in and leave a message and say, hey, Emily, my client so-and-so is looking to come by and put a deposit down on home site 8, right?
Mhm.
And so he would do that and they'd hear it. And then I'd be like, if you want to go ahead and make sure you get this home site that you love, you already see your pool, in the backyard, like let's go ahead and sign it right now, because otherwise this other person may take it from you.
Yeah. There's a huge emotional component when it comes to buying a home. And there's such a, like my husband even makes fun of me, because when there's a contract put in front of me, I'm like, all right, well, where can I sit down and start reading it, And he's like, you're doing that again. Like nobody reads it, and that's true. Most people don't read it. And like I said, it's not like you're going to sit there and negotiate it. They won't even let you negotiate it. But you need to know what it says and you need to know what it means. And in Texas, there's something called the four corners rule, which means that whatever's written on the paper, it doesn't matter what other intent was outside of what's written on the paper. It's whatever the words are on the paper, so you can't take a contract and say, well, I know that it says this, but what we meant, because what we had talked about, and they just didn't translate that into the contract, but that's what we talked about. That doesn't fly in Texas. It's whatever makes it into the document, the four corners of the document. So whether you're going to read it or you're going to pay an attorney to read it, distill it, and help you to understand it, I mean, either way, but you have to know what it says so that because it's going to change the way that you interact with the builder. It's going to change the way that you escalate things. And I have never heard of a person doing what I just said to do, which is forget the warranty. Don't even pay attention to it. And even when we were looking to hire a builder, one of the things I was looking at was comparing warranties, between builders. I was like, well, this one has this. What is this warranty? And now my view has changed 100%, because I'm like, I want to know that you have a good warranty, because I want to know that you stand behind what you're doing. Like I want you to have some written assurance that you're confident in what you're doing, and that you're gonna provide some assurance that it's done right. But I'm not relying on the warranty, especially if I find something that equates to a construction defect or something, or if God forbid you're seeing beer bottles all over the place, or something that shows you that they're not doing things right. They're not paying attention to detail. First of all, maybe walk away at that point. But but if you're seeing those things, why would you trust that person who did things so poorly and so sloppily to come back and fix it? Like obviously their standards are low. So get somebody who actually cares and knows what they're doing and is going to do things to the appropriate standard, and make sure that it's done right. And then go back and try to collect your money, because you did pay for that warranty. That's not free. You paid for it. But you have to know whether or not you trust them to fix it. But like I said, there are good builders. So there are some builders who genuinely, they might be alerted of an issue, and they would have a genuine intent to make sure it was fixed, and to make sure it was fixed correctly, and to make sure that you were comfortable and confident in how it was fixed. That's different. That's a different scenario than the scenario that I'm talking about here. But I will say I've never heard of a big box builder like a Perry or one of those competitives who takes that approach. Most of them are taking the approach where they gaslight the homeowner, they drag their feet, and then, you know, they run through the statute of limitations.
Well, you know, I found out through a few of our clients who are going through the whole arbitration clause, you know, along the way, there's supposed to be certain inspections done, right? Foundation inspection, structural inspection. Well, they're finding out that the person who signed off on that inspection never actually even did the inspection.
Oh my goodness.
And they're finding that out in discovery, you know, or in the deposition.
Wow.
So,
well, I mean that kind of thing is incredibly disappointing, but not surprising. You know, not surprising at all, because these things don't come out until you're in discovery. You know, it's never going to come out. Nobody's ever going to go to Perry and say, let me talk to the person who signed off on this inspection and let me make sure that they actually did the inspection, you know, because all they're going to say is, oh yeah, we have it on record. Because I think they do have some kind of record where they keep inspection reports or results of inspection reports or something. I remember somebody citing that to us whenever we were looking at a home in this community. And I was like, okay, but how do you know more? How do you know anything more than what's in that form, you know? And it doesn't come out until discovery. And I think that they rely on that because not a lot of people pursue it to discovery.
Because they can't even afford to even go down that route to begin with.
Yes. Yeah. That's the other unfortunate reality is arbitration is very expensive. And when you agree to a binding arbitration, typically you're agreeing to pay at least half the cost up front. You know, so you're imagining a family who's lost everything because of mold. They've had to move out of their house. They've had to, you know, try to find someplace to live. They've had to leave all their possessions behind. They're maybe emotional and maybe physically broken, you know, depending on how sick they are. And then now you're saying, all right, pay a whole bunch of money for an arbitrator and then also go get an attorney. And then, you know, also pay rent on this house that you're going to have to, or buy another house or, you know, whatever. But there's just, you're bleeding money by that point and you don't have time, you know? And I think in our case, I mean, we didn't have a new home. Our home that was moldy was an older home. But we did talk to an attorney about, you know, potential recourse against the prior homeowners for details I won't go into, but that was going to be so time intensive and so expensive. And even though everything in my lawyer heart and my mom heart was like, this is so unjust, this is so unfair, and they're putting our family in such a horrible position, we can't even recover, you know, because we're so just stretched. And it wasn't right, you know. But you have to make a choice, and that was a choice that we made. Is, you know, I said I don't have the time, energy, or resources to try to find justice. I have to find healing. I have to find safety, you know. And the builders, they don't have that thought. They don't have that consideration. It's just a business for them, you know. For the homeowner, it's a whole different set of components, and it's there is no justice in it. It's not fair.
And it's mentally taxing. I think people forget that. If you're in arbitration, it's not shorts.
No,
so you are
yeah.
literally reliving it over and over. That was actually a mental break for me. My husband came home one day and he's like, you're not okay. And I was like, no, I've been working on this for the lawyer for literally the last 6 months straight. And I just can't do it anymore because you constantly have to see the pictures and remember all the details of how you were sick. And people forget that sometimes. They just go gung ho into, oh, it'll be done in 2 weeks and I can, you know, move on. That's not the reality at all.
It's not the reality. Yeah. No. And what you described, it gives me chills. But what you described of, you know, having to put in all that work, that's the part of, you know, are you going to pay in time or are you going to pay in money? Because there are some lawyers who will do all that groundwork for you. They're not doing it for free, you know. And so when you're already strapped for cash and you're like, yes, okay, I want justice. Yes, okay, I'm going to pursue the legal route. All right, but now I have to do all that legwork. I have to do all that research. I have to put together everything, and yeah, it's incredibly difficult.
Yeah,
incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
So anyways, all of that is to say that, you know, I think going into it eyes wide open, going into a residential construction contract eyes wide open, and don't rely on the builder's process, the warranty process or anything. It actually reminds me of, I don't know, have you guys ever been through an active shooter training? Have you ever taken one of those? And do you recall the point in that training where they said, in a panic, people lose sight of the multitude of escape routes that are actually in front of them. They're going to be like, oh, there's a wall, I can't go past that wall. There's a window, I can't go past that window, I'm stuck. But in reality, like, you can break a window, or you can, I don't know, maybe find a way to barrel through a thin wall or something. There are multiple routes. And so I think for some reason this process reminds me of that, because I'm like, people get stuck in process and doing the right thing, and they're like, I have to do it this way because that's what the builder's warranty said. Screw the builder's warranty. What are you trying to protect? What are your resources available to you to do that and to make sure that it's done right? And then go back and try to make it right, try to collect, but after you've secured your safety and after you've secured your investment. So I think that's very, very important.
We'd like to take a minute and thank one of Malachi's Message Tier 2 sponsors, Kurt Carpenter Law. The law office of Kurt W. Carpenter helps property owners, business owners, and entrepreneurs in Montgomery County and the Houston area who are in need of legal assistance. Attorney Kurt Carpenter focuses on property litigation, including construction, business, and real estate law. His office understands the legal issues facing property owners, business owners, and entrepreneurs in Houston because they also invest heavily in this market. If you need to speak to an attorney who has a business owner and investor experience, then give them a call immediately for an initial consultation. To learn more, visit kwclaw.com. As you're talking about people like hiring a lawyer in the beginning process when they're looking at a home, okay, whether they're building or looking at moving into a new home, what type of lawyer for everybody out there? Because we already learned from you, right? There are multiple different types and they all have their own fields of expertise and they do what they do. What type of lawyer are we talking about there?
I think you would look for a residential or just a construction lawyer. Either of those should be able to help you. You could probably even just find a general litigator, but I don't know that they would have necessarily the specific background that you're looking for, because you do want somebody who knows residential construction contracts, knows what they're looking at, and wants to make sure that there are specific components in that contract. So I think you're definitely looking for somebody on the residential real estate, residential construction expertise.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah,
yep.
I can imagine people listening and going, I'm going to Google lawyer. Shit, yes. What do I do now?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. No, I think that's a great question, because like I said, I have a certain expertise. This is not it. So anytime people are asking me for help on active cases or things like that, I'm like, the best I can tell you is you need to find a lawyer who has the background in this, because I have opinions, but I have not myself tried these cases or any case, to be honest. Yeah. So so it is important. But one other thing that I did learn that maybe people don't know. So I've talked about the residential construction contract at length, but a component of that contract is actually the construction documents. And that is something that you should be able to negotiate. And again, that should be a question that you're asking your builder: is their willingness to let you negotiate the construction documents? Because what the construction documents are they are the specifications that are going out into the field as to how is your home going to be built, what materials are going to be used, how are we going to take care of those materials, how are they going to be delivered to the site, how are they going to be stored at the site, who is responsible, all of those things. And you can make adjustments to your construction documents. Now, I don't know that every builder will let you, so that should be a threshold question of you to ask if you are looking for a builder and you're buying a home. Is their willingness to let you, make amendments to the construction documents? Because in that you can put things like absolutely no drinking on site, no drinking, no drugs on site, which is something that you don't think should have to be said in a construction contract, but it does. I can tell you, even just walking around this neighborhood, and you can look at my Instagram, you can see multiple times where there's beer bottles strewn about on an active construction site.
There's a home being built behind me right now. And just the other day I took a video of it, but the guy was drinking a beer and he was like tossed it into the trash can. He's like on the he's on the roof.
Oh my God. I don't understand. I don't understand. But it is unfortunately very common. It is very common. And so that is something that you as a homeowner need to understand. That is common. That is something that you need to specify will not be happening, in your home, in your build. Another thing that you can specify in the construction documents is that, for example, when the HVAC company installs your HVAC system, that's long before the home is, completely built or cleaned. You can specify that it will not be turned on until all construction debris is, cleaned from the site. And the reason that you want that is when they turn that on, you've got air returns and you've got air supplies. And so if you have dust and dirt and debris, all of the stuff that's happening in an active construction site, that's going to get sucked up into your HVAC system. And something that mold loves is dust and dirt and debris. In a brand new HVAC system, you're going to have a problem potentially with a food source for mold in your HVAC system if you let them turn it on before construction is complete and everything is clean. And I'm not being cruel because I know it's Texas and it's hot. I'm not saying that these poor people building your home should suffer. There is an option for companies to actually bring in, an outside air source so that they can put that in a window and they can run it and have, the inside cooling. And that's actually better for the moisture and things drying out of your home during that process too. You don't want it to just get hot and muggy inside, but there are options. There are options. It's just that, people don't know about those options. But different specifications like that, even saying you would also think that maybe this is standard, but it's not, that they would not use moldy wood in framing.
Yeah.
You can specify that in construction documents, and you can make sure that, before they accept, you can put in the construction documents, before you accept a shipment of wood, it should be visually inspected, for any visual mold. Now, of course, that's not a fail safe because as everybody knows, there could be mold and it's not completely visible, on any particular piece of wood, but it's going to help. It's going to help mitigate, that problem. Because I have seen homes being built with black wood. And no, I didn't get up there and do a test and say that was mold, but visually, I think it's a pretty good chance that was moldy wood. So pay very close attention to your to the ability to negotiate your construction documents that go along with your residential construction contract, because the construction documents are actually made a part of the contract. It's almost like an addendum. It's outside the contract, but it's made a part of the contract. So if they don't do what's in the residential construction documents, you could have recourse under the contract. Then that would be a breach of contract, for example. But that's why I say look at the Healthy House book, because it has a plethora of ideas and actual language that you could plug into your construction documents. Pick and choose what's important to you, and put the things in that are important to you.
I love that you bring that up about the moldy wood because, during, as we all know, inflation is pretty high right now, or it has been, and the market for homes, the prices for homes skyrocketed, and builders were just, trying to throw up homes as fast as they could. And a lot of people that called me were so frustrated because they signed a contract on January, let's just say 1st, now it's June and their framing is all done. They're about to sheetrock everything up and they are noticing all this mold on all the wood. And because of the way the market was, the builder was like, well, you can either continue buying this home. We're not replacing the wood, or you can back out of the contract because now they can sell the home for a higher price and, today than whenever they originally sold it to the other person. And that left that person now in a vulnerable position because they were planning on moving into this home in the next 4 months. And now what did they do?
Yeah. And that's, and the builder is even in an even better position because the new homeowner, whoever they find, everything's going to be covered up by the time they sign the contract. So they're never going to see it. And I've heard people question, like, well, what does it matter what's happening behind the walls? Because it's not inside the house, it's not inside the house. How is that really affecting me? And I would tell people that they should really consider doing a little bit of research into the way that homes are actually exhausted in the typical construction of that, because in a home that has exhaust only ventilation, that means the only time that there is an air exchange between outside and inside, there's no mechanical system for that. It's whenever you turn on your bathroom fan or your laundry room fan or your kitchen fan or something. There's an air exchange there because of the pressure difference that creates. But where is the air coming from is the question. And it's actually coming from small cracks, in the small cracks or small airways or, small construction. It's filtering air through the walls of your home, and it's coming into your home. So it absolutely 100%, what happens behind your walls 100% affects your air quality inside your home. And people don't realize that your HVAC system, it's only heating and cooling your air. It's not pulling in new air. It's only a matter of temperature. It's not doing anything for your fresh air. So your fresh air in an exhaust only home, which is most homes in Texas are exhaust only, is it's filtering through your walls.
Emily, didn't you say yesterday when we were talking that Texas is pushing for that to be a standard, that if mold is in your walls?
Oh my gosh, yes, because it's such a big problem. So I've been told that the builders actually had like a meeting, like several different builders, and they got together and they're trying to get it normalized where if the mold is in the wall cavities, and that's okay. It's only until the mold starts to show through on the other side of the sheetrock, so the interior side, is it a problem.
Oh my gosh.
They're talking about that right now because it's such a big issue, so they don't want to have to go back and fix all these homes because that hurts their profit.
Yeah.
So let's just basically say mold in the walls is fine. And then once you start to see it come through, your sheetrock of your home, then call us.
Yeah.
But what happens at that time? How old is the home when that happens? Are you now out of the statute?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so, exactly. So how would that even work if somebody were sick and you couldn't see the mold and they suspected it was behind the walls? How would that even?
There'd be no recourse at that point.
There's one inspector that works for the builders. She goes around and basically, tries to minimize damages or say everything's fine. Yeah. She just told one of my clients, oh, it's okay. It's okay because the Chaetomium mold is in the wall cavities. So you don't have to worry about it.
What the heck?
Oh my gosh.
And she's one of the ones that is apparently working and helping the builders trying to get it normalized.
I don't know how these people can do this in good conscience. I really don't. I mean, it absolutely blows my mind.
Well, half of them, I want to say, go live in one of those homes, like live in that home for 2 years and then tell me you'd still be okay with this. But they're obviously not going to because they know, but.
Yeah. Or, I mean, or maybe they're so, some of the symptoms of mold illness are so overly normalized, that people don't attribute it to mold illness, Oh, I have chronic anxiety. Oh, I have depression. Oh, I can't sleep. Oh, I have, issues with bowel movements. That's probably just stress, I mean, that's what we, personally, we told ourselves for years before we found out that we were living in mold. We told ourselves the same thing. So like, I get it, but when you know better, and particularly when you're in that industry, you should know better. And that's just unconscionable. It's absolutely unconscionable. But you know what? It's good to know that that's what we're fighting against. You gotta know the devil.
Well, fight on, Cristina, and give us some more good points.
Okay, so this was not in our initial line of questioning. So if we need to edit this out, Emily, do it. But what would you say to people that are looking at rental homes with their contracts? Because those often have, your mold addendum in there, that if you acknowledge that there's mold around you, then you're basically stating, it could be in the home. How would you tell people to handle contracts with rentals?
So I have not seen that mold addendum, actually. It's
builders have.
Oh, I have it. That was our issue.
Builders basically have the same mold addendum, and that's the issue. Builders also provide a mold addendum generally with their contracts, just as landlords do too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say, well, what I was going to say before I got tripped up with the mold addendum question, because I've never seen that. But what I have seen is people follow the Texas property code for, landlords and the recourse against issues in the homes. And I've not seen any issue with being able to, get out of your lease if you give the landlord appropriate notice, and even if it is related to mold, because that certainly affects the health and well-being of the inhabitants of the home. So, you would have to just put that in writing, notify them, give them reasonable opportunity. And I think reasonable opportunity to cure is there's a rebuttable presumption that it's 7 days. So just assume that the landlord has 7 days to, to do something to fix it. But yeah, personally, I wouldn't hesitate to break a lease. If it were a result of mold.
That's what we had to do. We gave it in writing repeatedly, and then we found out later that there were multiple other people in the same complex that would not talk to us, because we found out later they were in legal suits with the same apartment complex. But we ended up having to break our lease, and we actually had to pay a couple $1,000s to break it. But at that point we were like, well, it's not worth it anymore. We're just going to do it and be done with it. But yeah, that was the addendum that even after showing Emily, that our lawyer looked at too and said, well, this is right here. You, by signing this, you acknowledge that mold could be present. So you were agreeing to the consequence of that living in the apartment. And it just baffled me, because I'm thinking, like you said, though, it's in the wordage, right? Because in my head, I'm thinking, well, I never agreed to be sick, and I didn't agree for my kids to be sick, and I didn't agree to see it coming through the vents that you painted over 5 times. But again, no complaints that led me to this point, but I was just curious.
Yeah. No, that's harsh. And I can't believe that would actually, I mean, obviously it stands up. I've never personally noticed or seen it myself. And I think that I would, if I were breaking a lease, I don't know, I personally, and again, don't take my advice, but I would break the lease, and then I would not pay, and I would let them come after me, because, what are we going to do? What are the optics of that? Come after me for breaking the lease. I'm going to show you pictures of what I was living in. You're going to have to tell me how that was acceptable, and how that was not a detriment to my health, well-being, and safety.
Yeah.
So like, put that on you.
Yeah. Here's one piece of advice that I've learned through this one client. Go find another rental home before you do that, because her landlord slapped an eviction.
Yeah.
Her, and now she's unable to rent anything.
Yeah.
Oh man, because she has the eviction on her.
Yeah. No, that's actually really good advice. Yeah. Try to secure your new place before you do that, because I mean, some people, some landlords, I guess, wouldn't take the time to do it, but others would. Yeah, that's a real detriment. So completely unfair.
So tell us more good tips on how to protect yourself with the contract.
Yes. Well, let's see. We've covered residential construction contract. We've covered construction documents. We've covered warranty. I think that's all I have.
When you mentioned about the statute thing, I thought that was very interesting, because like I mentioned earlier before we got on, that reminded me of that movie Dark Waters. And even when I think about it, like even Aaron Brockovich, how those water companies sent out a notice to the residents to let them know there was, potential contaminant, and basically everything's going to be okay, or it is okay. They did that because that started the clock, that statute.
Yeah.
And unknowingly, those residents didn't know that, because at that time they got the notice. They should have known. They had the opportunity to look into it further.
Yes. So. And then when they don't, because they, had reason to believe, for whatever reason, that they were going to take care of it and that they were going to be okay, or they weren't really, in harm's way, clock is still ticking.
You were going to talk about inspectors, though, or inspections.
Oh yeah.
Were you not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yes. So I would also recommend that you get your own inspectors. So the builder is going to want to do their inspections. I wouldn't rely on that. Again, trust, make sure that you have a good relationship with your builder, somebody that you can trust, but verify. And so this but verify part is get your own independent inspector, because even if the builder is saying, oh, I have an inspector, he's great, he doesn't actually work for me, but he's somebody who I like to get to do my inspection. So he's independent third party. No, he's not. No, he's not. If he does consistent business with the builder, then I would say no, he is not independent. You want somebody 100% on your side who is educated on what they are looking for, and on different stages of your build. So that might mean different people. So you might have a team of different people. You might have somebody who's going to come in and do an inspection on the slab. You might have somebody on the framing, somebody on the drying in, somebody on the roof system, somebody on the wall system, And so, yeah, I'm saying all this, and it would be very expensive, but I think it's well worth it, at least to understand the different stages. And then maybe you pick and choose when you have your own independent inspector come in. Maybe it's not all of them, but maybe you decide what is the most important and you work that in. Now you would have to be very transparent with the builder and let them know that you were going to do that. That's something else that you would want to put into your construction documents, is that they agree to let you do that. Because what you don't want to happen is that you verbalize this expectation, and then they're in the middle of building the home, and now they're saying, well, you're holding us up, you're holding us up from taking the next step because your inspector can't come at this certain time. And so that's a problem, and we're we either want to move forward, or it could result in some other issue. So make sure that you verbalize that, make sure that you get that in writing in your construction documents. I think that's very, very important. And again, a good builder wants you to know the ins and outs of all of that, wants you to have assurance. And so they should want you to have your own independent inspection and get that assurance. And honestly, it would help, it would even help them. So let's just say you had your own inspections and then something went wrong, with the house that didn't come up on your inspection, didn't come up on their inspection. If I were the builder's lawyer, I would say, you had your chance, you looked into it and you said it was fine too. So it doesn't hurt the builder at all. It could be in their favor, honestly. If something went wrong, to kind of help spread the responsibility, I guess. But I think it does nothing but give you peace of mind and actual ability to get in there and to tell them to right size things. Because in a build, nothing is going to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. Either the weather is going to be crappy, it's going to rain before everything is covered up and dried in. That's definitely going to happen. There a piece of moldy wood ends up going up. It's not going to be perfect. And I think that people really should just kind of take a deep breath, go in with that expectation that it's not going to be perfect. But if you have the right builder, if you have the right team, you have good inspectors on your side, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. You're going to end up on the other side of it. You're going to end up with the house that you want, that you paid for. But you can't. It can't be that you understand the details and then you're completely hands off. You've got to be nose in, hands in. You have to know. You have to be there. You have to be present, or you have to have people that are present for you. Because it's not enough to just trust that things are going to be done correctly. Because even people with the best of intentions, there's a lot of moving pieces when you're building a house, a lot of different trades. So it's your responsibility to make sure that it gets done right.
I love that, because I feel like you're either putting the time and energy in on the front end, or you're going to be putting it in on the back end with arbitration. So you basically pick which side of that you want to invest the most time and energy, and just accept that. Yeah,
you nailed it 100%. And even when you're picking your builder, put the time and energy in to pick a builder who's a true partner, who supports, your need to verify. That way, whenever it comes down to it, you're not fighting with somebody who's like, back off. Why do you need to know all this? I've already explained it. Just trust me, and if anybody says, just trust me, I would say that's a huge red flag. Don't just trust them.
No, and I would say actually ask for references that you can call or you can go look at, and not just look at their reviews online, because people forget sometimes. People can purchase those reviews, so don't just trust the reviews online.
Yeah, no, that's huge. That's a great tip. And also don't just trust the reviews of people that you have talked to, because not everybody, not everybody looks at these details or cares about these details. There are people living in homes right now that look fine, that are nightmares behind the walls and nightmares inside the HVAC system, and they're perfectly happy because they have no idea.
Yeah. When we were driving through one of the neighborhoods that we were looking at, Derek's like, hey, that guy's like about my age. He's outside with his kids. We seriously consider this. I'm going to start going to some of these people and introducing myself and asking them if I can go like inspect their attic and look at their HVAC system. And I'm like, that's actually smart.
That's very
because
smart.
they've been in it, and you can ask them, have you started to experience these issues? Like, I just need to know.
Yep.
Like, and you've got to be your own advocate still in this regard too, right?
Yeah. I think 100%. And I think that I think all of those things are on the table. Nothing should be off limits in this. There's no limitation to how you find information or what information you rely on. I mean, there's so much out there, and you absolutely should not be limited, by just information that the builder gives you, for example, or just information that you find online, or just information that you read in one book. I think it's really important to just try to get as much as you can, as many different resources as you can, because then you can kind of develop a baseline. The first few books that I started to read, I was like, oh my God, first of all, I don't understand what they're talking about. And second of all, like, I don't even understand. I've never seen this type of system that they're talking about that doesn't exist in Texas, and it was all just so like overwhelming and daunting. And then I started to read more and different ones. And then, I saw some reoccurring themes, and then I've learned that, you're building in one climate is different than building in another climate. So then I was, oh, okay, now I'm going to start looking for books that are related to building in a hot, humid climate. That's where we are, and so there's all different there. It's not linear, and it shouldn't be linear. And it's a constant evolution.
And I know we're going to touch on a lot of that. We're going to do another interview with you on building practices, because you've done a lot of research on that, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
I have done a lot of research on that. Yes. And I'm already prepared for that one, because we were thinking we might get into that one today, but that one's for a different day.
Well,
but I'm so
I know you love what you're doing in the field that you're in, but I really hope that you get into helping people with their builders contracts and so forth, because I think that you would be the perfect person.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. And, we mentioned, we talked a little bit earlier about, doing some, this mold journey has flipped my world upside down. It has made me dig into pieces of myself that I thought were locked up nice and tight and didn't need any work at all. And it's all, it's all bubbling up. And one of those things is working to find the intersection of, doing what I love, and then also, doing what I need to do, and finding a way to make those things fit. And yeah, I think you're right. I think there could be something there. So we'll see.
Yes, I love it. All right. We will put the link to the book you recommended, and we'll make sure we attach your Instagram link. Do you have a website yet?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Chris keeps promising me that he's gonna get it up, and then he doesn't, and I forget to ask. So.
I had to ask, because in one of our other interviews with you guys said maybe it would be coming soon. So I was like, hey, we're gonna find out today.
I know. No, and I think after that interview, he's like, we're gonna do it next weekend. And then I was like, oh, okay, we'll do it next weekend. And then, something came up, and now it's been many weekends since that.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much. This was all incredible information that people needed to hear.
Thank you. I hope that it is helpful. And I always enjoy talking to you ladies.